everyone. My name is Ian, and I'm here with my co-host Chris. We are the Mental Barbell. This is our first episode, so we're gonna see where it goes. We're here to talk about sports and sports psychology and everything in between. So, Chris, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Ian. How you doing, my man?
Doing very well. Happy International Women's Day to you.
Yes, happy International Women's Day to you as well.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if we didn't get to talk a little bit about all the really tremendous things that are happening in women's sports. Uh, I know you kind of follow the Caitlin Clark situation and just the absolute just mind bending things that she's doing, breaking the NCAA scoring record. They're selling out arenas at prices that have never been seen before. So really just hats off to her and what she's been doing over there in women's basketball and really just kind of a moment to celebrate women in sports in general. Something that I found out that I thought was just shocking was that the first year that women were allowed to compete in the NCAA was in 1981. So if you think about that, they have not been women have not been in college sports very long. So for the things that we're seeing, it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, right to that point, under 50 years of being under the NCAA rules and regulations, right? So to see what we're seeing, right, with Caitlin Clark's the big one, right? But then you have Angela Reese as well, right? LSU and all the other great schools, Stanford, that'll just keep on making it fun to go watch, right? And showing people that, hey, as women, they can go do it too, right? And the big thing is just putting the same advertising behind them because we've proven, like you said, the sales, the numbers of tickets being sold at the cost that they are, people want to go see it. People will pay to go see it, right? So for the NCAA, just keep on feeding that machine so that we can get these young women, the respect and the face time they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, just a moment to celebrate, women in sports. So, for all you women, coaches and athletes and support staff that are out there, thanks for everything that you do and keep on doing what you do. Um, I guess in other news, we've got the big retirement of Jason Kelsey. I think that's a newsworthy announcement that kind of is it's right up our alley, right? We do a lot of work with athletes in the retirement phases, in near retirement phases, something like injury or burnout situations. So, I think maybe we can use this as a kind of a jumping off point to talk about how athletes can kind of gracefully retire into the next phases of their life. So, Chris, what experience do you have with athletes, entering that retirement phase?
Yeah, that's a great question, and kind of like what you said. Sometimes we deal with forced retirement, whether it's through injury, whether it's through not another level to play at, right, whatever it may be, versus unforced retirement, which Kelsey kind of fell into more, where it was more of a choice-based thing. Yes, there were factors that were playing against him, right? I believe it was about 13, 14 years in the NFL, so that's a long time, and just external factors, wanting to raise a family whatever it may be. However, it was still his choice, right? And it wasn't something that was due to an injury. No, I can't physically move or be where I used to be at the level of play. So now I can't play. And I'll kind of build off that, right? So the forced injury is something I've worked with a handful of times, different sports. One of the most notable ones that I can remember offhand was a wrestler who came in and wanted to play another year at the NCAA level and had to kind of figure out was it worth it, right? Coming in with a lot of injuries. For the wrestlers out there, you guys already know it's normal to have injuries. For those of you who aren't used to the sport or know much about the sport, right? It's such a physical demand on top of the weight cutting consistently. So your body isn't always at 100%, right? So to train at those high levels, you're going to get those minor aches and bruises that may add up to torn ligaments, ACLs, MCLs, shoulders, whatever it may be, back injuries, right? And over, in the NCAA, 3, 4 years plus high school, and all the other younger kids that start so young, you got 10 plus years of just those injuries and ailments happening, right? So in this case, it was kind of the long term versus short term that we discussed with this athlete of if you're kind of limping now and getting out of bed now stuff at the age of 19, if you want a family in long term, and you want to be able to be with them and move and be able to play with your future kids, what impact does another year have on that? And is it worth it? Right.
Mhm.
So sometimes it is looking at that long term versus short term gain and understanding, what are your goals for both of those and which outweigh the other in regards to life, happiness, and satisfaction.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of like, sports are a sacrifice. You're sacrificing your time. To some extent, you're sacrificing your body. Uh, like you said, you kind of have to do that cost benefit analysis of do I want to keep going? And for some people, in that situation, no is the answer. Sometimes yes is the answer. But I think you hit on something really important there, and that's the factor of choice, right? So locus of control is something we talk about a lot of do you feel the choice is being made, internally or externally? And so if you're injured, that's an external locus of control, and that athlete is going to struggle with retirement in a different way that someone like Jason Kelsey will with that kind of elective retirement rather than forced retirement. So I think you hit the nail on the head there with the kind of the choice or non-choice retirement. And then I think, something else to talk about is the ability for sports to train skills that are then applicable beyond sports. So a lot of
Mm,
times with the athletes that I work with, we'll talk about, or I'll have them, get out a piece of paper and write down all the things that they're really good at as an athlete. And then you kind of fold that paper in half, and now you have to write on the other side, how can those skills, benefit a career or whatever it is that their next chapter is. And by doing that, you kind of bridge the gap between that athletic life versus the next stage. And so that's that way to kind of gracefully enter into the next identity. And that brings me to the point of athletic identity. And that, like you said, I know in our conversation before we started recording, athletes are playing or they're competing, they're caring about their sport from such a young age that it accumulates and accumulates and accumulates so that being an athlete is so core to who they are or who you are or who I was, that when you retire, it's almost like part of that is just gone, and that can be a really jarring experience. And so that's where talking your way through it and kind of transitioning smoothly into the next phase is really important. So was there anything else that brings up for you?
yeah, and, just to kind of build off what you said, sometimes we forget that there are multiple slices to our identity, right? And as one gets built, right, the others just tend to not get addressed, right? And for those of you who have seen the movie Inside Out, right, the Pixar animated film, we have a great description of that, right? The three pillars that made up the main character, two of them got destroyed from them moving to a different school, right, or a different school district, and now there's so much pressure on just one, right? So when we have all that pressure, if we don't do well in the game, we may take it so much harder because it's so magnified because that's all we see as our identity, right? So a lot of the work I think both of us do is almost challenging that to an extent, right? And I know when I was at working at a D1 college in the athletic department, I challenge these kids to on your off day, forget about your sport and go do something different, go try something, right? And the biggest thing with that is accepting that whether or not you like it or don't like it, the fact that you went and tried it is what you have to fall in love with, right? You're not going to like everything you go do, right? However, if you don't go explore these things, you'll never know, right? So the more exposure you get to just different things out there can help you build that identity for those of you who just started from sports, right out of the womb, right? And sports are beautiful, first and foremost, right? You can learn so much about yourself, how you work in a new environment, how to lead, how to follow, communication skills, all that good stuff. And how can you take that, like you said earlier, to the next step of life? Right? So the exercise you talked about of just identifying the things you like about sport and then how can that transfer over into whatever that might be is awesome, right? And it's a big thing too to think about what type of sport were you in, right? If you're an individual sport person, is it going to be good to go into a team-based job site or facility or future career, or you enjoy that individuality, and how can you find that within what that next step may look like?
Sure. So you almost, I mean, you learn so much about yourself through sports for sure, and so you can kind of think about what environments you thrive in through sports, and that can help kind of lead you in the direction that is best fit for you. I think that's awesome. And I think this kind of transitions into our next topic here. And and one of the things that I think you learn so much from in sport is the kind of anti-fragile mindset,
Mhm.
where even if things happen to you, it's not that it's happening to you because of you as you as a being, you as a person. It's just kind of an external situation that you find yourself. And that's with I think that's most starkly seen in the idea of wins and losses, right? Just because you lose a game doesn't mean you're a loser, right? It goes back and forth. It's all part of the game. And that's what you learn through sports, right? You bounce back from failures, and you kind of get back up on the horse. You kind of have to. That's how it all works. And then that skill is directly transferable into your career, right? That's if you get in trouble with your boss, if you are late to a meeting, it's again, you don't internalize that because of the things that you've learned as an athlete. um so I think, again, yeah, like you said, the skills, the things you learn about yourself as an athlete are directly transferable then to your life thereafter, for
Yeah,
sure.
right. And to build off that, right, I kind of tell clients all the time, like, treat it as film study, right? If you had a horrible game, what are you going to go do? Just not review it and figure out how to fix it, right? Those are the
Right.
people that wind up getting cut or on the chopping block, right? If you go in and can understand, okay, this is a horrible game. How can I learn from it? Right? Watch the film, review it, right? Same thing as, okay, I had this meeting and it went really bad. Okay. Well, what did I do in that meeting? What should I change? How can I apply that to the next meeting? Right? Every moment, it's about growth at the end of the day, regardless of what you're doing, sports, non-sports, it's growth, right? Trying something, figuring out what worked, what didn't, and how to change what didn't to get that outcome that you want.
For sure. Yeah, I think it brings up two thoughts. That the first is the idea of asking yourself, is this effective in the moment? And this is one of the things that I've coached probably the most with in my swim coaching, and also the mental performance coaching now that I do, is we all want to succeed, right? So that's let's say that's the goal. As an athlete, you want to succeed. Whatever that looks like, you want to succeed. No one's goal is to fail, right? And so along the way, things happen that then you're reacting to. You often think that you're reacting because you're failing, but that reaction is going to make you less likely to succeed. So what I mean by that is, like, let's say, like what you said, let's say you're in a race, you don't hit your splits, you don't hit the goal time that you want. You could sit and kind of mope around about it and be upset, but that's going to make you less likely to succeed in the end. Whereas you need to figure out, is the moping effective? Is this pushing me to where I need to be? And so I find that question, is this effective, is really effective. You know what I mean? It's a good way to get yourself out of that situation and think, goal oriented. What's the next step to get me to the goal that I have, rather than feeling bad in the moment.
Right. And, we can go down a laundry list of athletes who are deemed greats that had so many roadblocks, right? Jordan not making his high school team,
For sure.
right? Kobe in a summer league scoring 0 points because he didn't develop his left hand when he was younger,
Hmm.
right? I'm sure a million and millions of more of options, right? And it's sitting there and going, okay, I can either be really, really upset and just never try again and just, kind of wallow in this sadness, or what do I need to do, right? What work needs to be done to get to that next level?
Yeah, 100%. And then that brings me to my next idea there, and that's something that you and I do. We're gonna do this after the meeting now, and that's the good, better, how idea. And that's, I think, one of the is it effective, and the good, better, how are probably two of the most effective strategies I know of to kind of evaluate a performance. And I'll let you explain good, better, how. I think you do a really good job kind of outlining it.
Yeah, right. And I love this theory because it is constructive, reflective, and minimizes any chance to be negative on ourselves long term. Right. It really helps close the thought chain of the what ifs too, is what I've
Mhm.
noticed. Right. So really fun structure, good, better, how. First question is really simple. Good. Okay. What went well? Right. In this performance, in this practice, whatever it was, meeting. Right. What was good about this? Right. So let's highlight those positives. The second step, better. What could have gone better? Cool. Let's identify the things, right? Whether it is something you did good, but you want to do it great, whether it is something that you didn't implement that you want to now try to implement, a new skill, whatever it might be. And the third step is awesome because it's constructive. How? How can I make that better? Right. So this is awesome because it gives us, like I said earlier, a closed chain. A lot of the times, dang, I'm just not doing good. And then we go down that rabbit hole. Well, you know what? I'm not training enough. I'm not really trying that much. I'm not this. I'm not that. What if this? What if that? And we don't have an answer to close that loop, right? With the good, better, how formula, dang, I just wasn't finishing today. All right, that was my problem. What do I got to do to work on that? Okay, well, let me go get a buddy just to stand under the rim, and I'll just drive and practice lefty and right-handed layups, until I feel good and hit a 50 on each hand. Awesome, right? Now that you create this loop, every time you start to kind of feel frustrated about your finishing ability in this example, now we can reflect and go, okay, well, this is what I'm doing about it, right? Instead of allowing ourselves, to your point earlier, sitting in that and not realizing that that's just hurting us more, right? By giving ourselves a constructive goal, now we can move forward with it.
Yeah. And if anyone's familiar of kind of the compliment or the constructive criticism sandwich, the compliment sandwich, where you hide a negative criticism between two compliments, that's kind of the structure that you're describing too, is, what's something you did really well, what's something that was
Mhm.
okay, and then how can you make it better? So it's that compliment sandwich structure, that just leads us to be more positive in our outlook, and gets you out of that ruminating about, something that went wrong. So I think that's great. Well,
Yeah.
I moving on. We just finished up the NFL Combine this past weekend. That's pretty exciting to see all the 40s and all the bench press records and all that stuff going down. So, do you follow much of that? Do you watch the Combine?
Yeah, used to a little more back in the day. Now it's just a little harder being a real person and just being more busy, right? Definitely caught some highlights though. We got some linemen moving really quick, which is always fun to see, right? See those big boys moving, 300
Yeah,
plus
yeah.
pounds, flying a 5 second 40,
Hmm.
which is absolutely incredible at
Yeah.
that weight. And then just seeing, right, there was a running back who put up 30 plus reps at 225, which is awesome, right? Just really to see these athletes have a chance to showcase the abilities that they may not have just because they may be a bigger or a smaller school, or they may not be the number one dude on their team, so they don't get the national attention that they deserve. So always fun to see these young athletes get that opportunity and that chance, and just go enjoy it. Right at the end of the day, it's another experience on this trail that we call life, right? So for them to go have that experience, meet GMs, coaches, training staff, see how things run in the NFL, always cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fun. I love seeing all the all the physical tests and stuff, and I always love to see like the records going down because you can see just the improvement of the field, like of the up and coming athletes to just getting freakier and freakier as they come through that pipeline. But one of the things that that I've always kind of wondered about, they do all these physical tests, things like that. I know we do the Wonderlic test, for kind of the psychology side of it. But I do know that a lot of the teams do their own kind of in-house testing. They'll often hire a sports psychologist, to come in and do a lot of evaluations on their prospects, right, on the people that they want to bring into the team. And so they'll look at things like compatibility with others, or their leadership ability, things like that are a little bit harder to quantify, right? And it just it kind of lends itself to a good conversation here of how do we kind of make mental skills a little bit more visible, right? It's not quite as visible as bench pressing 225 30 times, but I know both of us believe that stuff is just as important, as the physical side. And there's a few other examples. IMG Academy down in Bradenton, Florida. I know they hire a lot of sports psychologists and mental performance coaches, the military. So these very high performance institutions are valuing mental performance skills and sports psychology services very highly, but maybe just not getting as much attention. And maybe what kind of you think about that?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, right? First and foremost, it's hard when something's not physical or quantifiable to really help express its necessities,
Mm,
right? It's easy. Okay, nutrition, simple. We need good nutrition because we need our athletes to perform, right? That's fuel for their body. right? Athletic training and the rehab side of it. That's a very clear cut. This is why it's important. Strength training, right? And I think for us, in this field, when I say us, these practitioners in this mental performance field, it is really kind of almost relying on the athletes that have already been there and have, whether they have noticed it or not, have talked about their mental approaches and the things they do differently that help break them from the mold, right? Jordan, Kobe, two really good examples, even Derek Jeter, right? The way they approach the game and aren't satisfied with certain things and understand, at the college level, 90%, especially at the pros, physical feats are more or less the same, right? You're
Right.
not going to have college, you'll have more of that standout, right? Who's just a physical freak who, whatever. Saquon Barkley, first one that pops in my mind, right? Him, Christian
Sure.
McCaffrey in college days, they looked like they were running in slow mo or making these other guys run in slow mo while they were just breezing past them,
Yeah.
But as you get into the pro level, how are you preparing? Right? What is your mental approach to practice? Are you getting the most intentional action out of a practice? Are you communicating with your coaches to understand what your goals are, right? So that you can move towards that, right? So there's all those little pieces kind of embedded in the world of sport that, again, like you said, it's hard to physically quantify because it's hard, to take a person's motivation and put it on a scale that everyone can see,
Yep.
right? Because everyone, a good example for my basketball people out there, looking at a Russell Westbrook and a Kawhi Leonard, right? Kawhi Leonard, cool, calm, collective. If you see him on the street, he wouldn't even probably ask you or talk about basketball, right? He doesn't have that type of energy that, like, oh, I'm a great, look at me, right? And then Russell Westbrook does, right? He is that more external, louder personality. And I dare to say both are just as motivated to try and go win a championship, right?
Sure.
So I think the biggest thing here for any athletes that are listening is understanding yourself, right? What does your motivation look like? What gets you motivated? What gets you prepared for performances? What are those little things that you do to make sure you're getting the most out of those moments, right? Whether it's going to practice and asking coach a million times, well, what's the purpose of this drill, right? What are we working on today, right? Why are we doing this, right? And helping them understand that you're doing it not to be annoying, right? Just to understand further, okay, if I understand this drill is to focus on how I can get in and out of my cuts, now I can think about that a little more. And when I plant, now I'm thinking more intentionally, well, if I got to get out, let me really push off this leg and flip over the other hip and think about the process versus just going through the motion. And although your body's still getting the rep, because we don't have that intentionality, we may not be getting the most quality out of that rep.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. I think that's a great point. I think that's a good point. Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I I think we've got a good first episode. We'll see where it comes from here, but I'm excited to see what we talk about, who we bring on, and kind of where we go from here. So
Yeah.
if you don't have anything else, we'll call it there.
Yeah. Just to kind of loop back to what we said earlier, we'll good, better, how this episode after we get some feedback, understand what we got to do better. We look forward to putting out a fun product for you guys to look at every once in a while.
Right on. All right, Chris, take it easy.
All right. Have a good one, Ian.